Another edition and the final one of the week of Beat the Closing Number presented by TheLines.com. My name is Eli Herskovich with the Lines lead MLB analyst Mo Noir, breaking down the slate for Friday, June 30th. Going to hit 2 or 3 games here on the card. Just one bet for Mo and then just a couple of nuggets. And Mo, let's start off with 10:10 p.m. Eastern Time first pitch. Kind of working our way backwards, but since this is your lone wager of the night, the Rays, best record in Major League Baseball at the Seattle Mariners. 3 games under 500, one of the many teams that has underachieved, to say the least, thus far this season. And they just lost 2 of 3 to the Nats in Seattle earlier in the week. Tampa Bay as high as minus 135 on the money line with AL Cy Young favorite Shane McClanahan on the bump. And Rays are pretty much minus 130 consensus favorites across the board the rest of the way. Bryce Miller opposing McClanahan, and he's come back down to earth a little bit after allowing just 4 earned runs over his first 5 starts after getting the call up. But he does have a 3.38 FIP, and that is 0.5 points lower than his ERA. So how are you betting Rays Mariners, Mel?
Yeah, naturally, the Mariners are back to earth the year after I took the under, and they had a tremendous season, but who's keeping track? I do have the Rays here. I've talked about Shane McClanahan before. I think the projections are undervaluing him a bit. I know some of his peripherals aren't great, but I just think he's better than the peripherals are saying, especially after how good he was last year and how elite his chase rate and swinging strike rate is. I'm still completely bought in that he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best, DeGrom notwithstanding. So I think it's a good spot for him against the Seattle team that has been a bit weaker hitting lefties. They have a 96 WRC+. They're ranked in the 20s there. Most importantly for me in this matchup, they have the 3rd worst strikeout rate against lefties. Obviously, that's a big strength of McClanahan's. Getting the baseball by major league hitters is the hardest thing to do, and he can do it better than almost anyone. So that's why I'm still believing that he's one of the best pitchers, even though his FIP and stuff is not quite as strong as it was last year. On the other side, it's Bryce Miller, like you said, and Bryce Miller, he has, I don't want to say he's like been figured out, but I think he is regressing to where he should be talent level wise, because he's a guy who just came out basically hurling fastballs, and he's still doing that, 66% four-seamers. I don't think you can get away with pitching like that in Major League Baseball in most cases. I know he has one of the best fastballs, but in this matchup too, the Rays are the best hitting team against four-seamers in MLB this year. When I'm looking at some of Miller's peripherals, his home run per fly ball rate is like 60% of league average, even though his barrel rate and his exit velocity are both on the weaker side, just like slightly. Like they're both just a little bit below average. So I think he's getting lucky in the home run department. I think he's like fine, but yeah, I think he's a lot worse than Shane McClanahan. And even if I just use like their projections, I'm seeing Shane McClanahan I think has value here, but when you just look at the matchups on each side, I think it's good for the Rays on both ends. So it's a really good spot for the Rays to me. I don't think they're going to come close to being bet out of the value range for me.
And it's a good point in terms of pitching usage for Miller, because he doesn't qualify just yet in terms of innings pitched among the, at least on baseball or on Fangraphs. So he doesn't qualify for pitch type usage and selection in regards to starters that began the season in their respective rotations. But for instance, Michael Kopech leads all of Major League Baseball in four-seam fastball usage. Garrett Cole, always seemingly one of the best pitchers in the majors, is at 56.3%. Just to give you a little bit more context, Kevin Gausman at 50%, who's right there in the AL Cy Young race. So Mo's definitely bringing up a great point in regards to, even though Miller has really good stuff when it comes to his fastball, his usage may be up a little bit too high. But a couple other games we want to get to, Mo, just quick points here. Minnesota in Baltimore for the first of a 3-game series tonight. Pablo Lopez taking on Dean Kramer. Lopez acquired in the offseason in the Luis Ariz trade with Miami. And by the way, the Marlins coming off a 3-game sweep of the Boston Red Sox. Their negative regression in terms of their run differential has yet to come. Who knows when that's going to happen? But back to Minnesota. Slight underdogs tonight in Baltimore. The casual bettor might see this line and say, why is it Baltimore minus 115? Why aren't they bigger favorites, just considering the record? And obviously, you and I both know that there's a lot more that goes into handicapping any sport than just a record. But the novice baseball bettor might be looking to take Baltimore here. But digging into things a little bit further, I know you don't have a bet on this game, but how are you handicapping it at the least?
Yeah, and the Orioles have been a money printing machine, right? Basically all season. So I definitely would understand somebody betting the Orioles here. And I would say that if I were going to take a side, it would probably be the Orioles. I would say if you can get minus 110 or better, it's still not enough for me to bet, but it's at least a small edge, in my opinion. But the consensus line at minus 115, I think, is about right. Pablo Lopez has not pitched as well as his peripherals say he should have. I still believe in him because every time I watch him, he's pitching well, and every time I look at his numbers, they're great. But this matchup, I think, is going to be a little bit tough for him. He's a little bit of a left-right splits guy, especially I think this year because he's working in that sweeper so much more, and that's a pretty big split pitch where like it's much better against same-handed batters. And for the Orioles, they just have, with Cedric Mullins back, I mean, they have so many strong lefties, Mullins, Henderson, Adley Rutschman. It's going to be a tough lineup for him to navigate, I think. So I slightly lean Orioles, but it's not enough for me to bet.
I tweeted this out last night, the AL Central standings. My God, Minnesota tied with Cleveland for first place. Both teams 2 games under 500 after the Guardians lost to the Royals in extra innings, surrendering an 8th inning lead to boot. Tigers 10 games below 500, just 4 back. White Sox 11 games below the Mendoza mark and 4.5 back. Kansas City is 25 games, 30, make that 35 games under 500, just 16 and a half back. I have no words. Last thing I want to say before we get out of here, Mo. I'll be in St. Louis tonight for Yankees Cardinals. It is un-American, as you and I both know, to go to a baseball game and not bet it. And especially when my girlfriend is likely going to be quite bored, even though there is a pitch clock, thankfully, for her sake. And I decided to take a small piece of the under 9.5. So you'll likely see Yankees leading St. Louis 10-5 in the 5th inning with Luis Severino against Matthew Liberatore. But I will say, Severino's fastball velocity is back up a little bit, which gives me a little hope there in regards to maybe a slightly inflated total. And then Liberatore's curveball, I think, matches up well against this Yankees lineup without Aaron Judge. Any quick thoughts on why my total bet is going to lose?
I think it is going to lose, so that means it's definitely going to win because I suck at totals. So I like your chances here. Yeah, Severino, he just had like a huge bounce back game where he completely shut down the Rangers. I didn't look into the StatCast stuff for that game or anything. Didn't have any money on it. I wasn't really paying attention to it. So I don't know if like he got lucky or what. I think he did only have 4 strikeouts, but yeah, I think Severino should be good. I mean, when I looked into his pitch mix earlier this year and how his pitches were moving and everything looked pretty normal. So I'm surprised he's struggling as much as he is. But as far as Liberatore goes, I wanted to believe in him. I think people who watch the show know that I was all over him after how strong he was in AAA. But I don't know. It just seems like for whatever reason, his stuff doesn't translate to the majors. I'm not really sure what's going on there.
And I have no problem with calling myself out for terrible bets. This may be one of them. Cardinals to win the division at whatever number I got, like plus 500, plus 550, was, looking back on it, just an awful bet. This rotation, man, I don't know how you could continue to trot out Adam Wainwright every 5 days. It is becoming a joke what St. Louis did or didn't do for its pitching staff, and also adding Wilson Contreras. We've gone back and forth on that, but yeah, there are a lot of things wrong with the Cardinals, and they're very likely, or at the very least, should sell at the trade deadline. But I digress, per usual, about St. Louis. That'll do it for this edition of Beat the Closing Number, presented by thelines.com. Again, you can follow the Lines on Twitter at TheLinesUS. You can follow Mo on Twitter at Mo Nawara, just as it's spelled on the screen. Remember to give the video a thumbs up and ring the bell to get notifications whenever the Lines releases a new sports betting video on any market, including Mo's day-to-day MLB bets, which can, of course, be found in real time in the Lines Discord channel. The link is over at thelines.com in the top right-hand corner. And if you want to dig into the slate even more and have a chance to win a $25 Amazon gift card, head over to play.thelines.com and sign up for our free daily MLB betting contest. That'll be going on throughout the rest of the weekend as well on Saturday and Sunday. Happy 4th of July, early happy 4th of July. I know it's next Tuesday, but some people may be taking 4 or 5 days off. I know Mo is going to Europe. When are you going to Europe, Mo? It's next week?
The week after.
Okay. So early happy vacation for you. I'll be heading to Europe in the latter part of July. So you'll be getting there before me and taking some well-deserved time off. But for Mo and for myself, Eli Herskovich, thanks for watching and listening to another edition of Beat the Closing Number. So long, everybody.